Hello class, good morning. Good morning, please sit down. Alright, so how are you all today? Hope everyone's good, doing good. Right, good to know that. Alright, so in today's class, I have brought you a new story, yet another very interesting story. Okay, so at the end of the class, I hope you all like it. Alright, so the story that we are going to learn today is called The Story of an Hour, and it is by an American author called Kate Chopin. Alright, so she is one of the most famous authors from America, and most of her stories have an interesting twist in the end, mostly like O. Henry's stories, which tend to end in a very ironic way or a humorous way. So it has a very different ending. It has a very interesting ending. Alright, so do you remember the name of the author that I just told you? Somewhere. Okay, I'll just write it down. Kate Chopin. Alright, so if you want, you can note it down. And the name of our story is The Story of an Hour. The Story of an Hour by Kate Chopin. Right. Alright. So before moving on to the story itself, let me ask you a simple question. How do you think people react to good news and bad news? What are the different ways in which people react to good news and bad news? Can you give me examples from your own experiences? Yes, please. Yeah, they might cry. That's a very possible answer. They might cry for good news and for bad news, right? Alright, next. Yeah, they might get excited. They might laugh out loud. Or, yeah, that's a very possible reaction. Anyone else? Okay, yeah. Yes, there might be a kind of a disappointment. That's also correct. There might be kind of disappointment, shock, or disbelief. All these are also very possible answers, very possible reactions to good news or bad news, or something or sort of in the middle, right? Very good. So these are the different ways in which people react to news, good news or bad news. Now in this story, we are also going to learn about a woman who reacted to a certain bad news that reached her way, okay, that came her way. We are going to learn about that kind of a situation. Alright, so when our story begins, the protagonist of our story, the protagonist is the main character of any story is called a protagonist. Alright, so the protagonist of our story, that is the story of an hour, the protagonist of our story is called Mrs. Louise Mallard. Alright, Louise Mallard is a woman and she's the protagonist of our story, and the story begins with the news of the death of her husband, Mr. Brentley Mallard. Alright, so Louise's sister Josephine and Brentley's friend Richards. These two people, Josephine and Richards, are the two people who are responsible for breaking the news to Louise Mallard, the news of the death of her husband. Alright, so do you remember the names that I just said? Can you try and recall them? At least one? Louise, correct. Yes, Louise is the protagonist of our story. And, alright, I'll write down the names for you. Louise Mallard, who is the protagonist of our story. Next one, her husband. Okay, no, Brentley Mallard, that's right, yes. Brentley Mallard and Louise's sister. Does anyone remember that name? Josephine, correct, very good. Brilliant. Alright, Josephine is her sister's name, and Brentley's friend. Anyone? Anyone? Okay, fine, I'll tell you. Richards. Alright, so these are the four characters in our story. Actually, these are the only characters in our story, that the names of which you will have to remember. Louise Mallard, who is the protagonist, her husband Brentley Mallard, the news of whose death Richards and Josephine are bringing to Louise. Now Richards is Brentley's friend and Josephine is Louise's sister. Is that clear? Confused? No. Alright, good. So we're on track till now. So these are our main characters. Now, as I told you, Josephine and Richards are bringing the news of the death of Brentley Mallard to Louise Mallard. Now they are taking extra care in order to break the news to her, because our protagonist, Louise Mallard, is a heart patient. Now, the case with heart patients is that you cannot bring down any trauma or sad news on them suddenly, because obviously they are heart patients and they might not take it easy, right? It might hurt them. So, for the same reasons, Josephine and Richards are taking extra care in order to break this news to Louise, because they feel that anyone else would break it insensitively and it would hurt her. Right? So now Richards has just gone and confirmed the news about the railroad disaster. Now there was an accident on the railway or railroad, they call it the railroad disaster, and there a list of people who have been killed in the disaster has been published, and Brentley Mallard's list is leading. Name is leading the list. Now he has confirmed this news with 2 telegrams. He has only waited for 2 telegrams and he has confirmed this news, and he's coming back to Louise in order to break the news to her, because he doesn't want anyone else who is very insensitive to break this news to her, because he feels that it might not be in an appropriate manner. Okay, he feels that he is the only one who can break the news to her in an appropriate manner. Alright, so this is where our story begins. Now, when Richards and Josephine, they come together and tell Louise about this incident, about this news, Louise does not take it like anyone else would. She takes it in a very peculiar manner. Okay, so first they tell her that, look, in whatever way they did, it's not mentioned in the story, but then we can just imagine, right? They might have just called her, kept her near them, and see, it's very tough. I know it's very tough, but you have to accept it, and all those formalities will be followed. And then they told her, but Louise took it in a very different way. Her reaction to it was not very expected. Okay, so first she wept for some time, she cried for some time, and then she composed herself, and then she retired into her room and stayed there alone. This is how she reacted. Okay, now that's very peculiar, right? Would anyone react to the news of the death of her husband like that? Do you think so? Do you think that's peculiar? Yeah, maybe. Okay. Right, so this is how Louise reacted to the news of the death of her husband. Now she goes into her room. She's all alone in her room. She closes the door. She goes and sits near a window, an open window. She looks out of the window. There is a roomy armchair just nearby the window. Armchair, like easy chair or something. Roomy armchair means there's a lot of space in it. It's big. It can really fit her in. Yeah. So she sits in front of that roomy armchair, on that roomy armchair, in front of an open window. She looks out of the window. There are a lot of things to see out of the window. There are birds chirping, there's blue sky, there's wind blowing, there are trees, there are leaves rustling. All those sights and all those sounds are making her relieve of her pain, or if there is pain at all. Okay, so all these signs are actually worth relieving our pain, right? They have the capacity to relieve us of our pain, right? That has happened to us with a lot of times, right? Has it? Yeah, maybe. Yeah, fine. So now she is sitting on that roomy armchair, she is looking out of the window and she is seeing all these things. Now what is peculiar is, after all this, she utters a word. What is that word? Now that word is what comes as a surprise in the story. She says, free, free, free. Oh, now that is not expected. She said free. Why do you think she said those words? Does anyone have any idea? What do you want to share? Oh, wait, please don't start shouting. That's not the way to answer. One of you, each one of you, please give me your answers individually. Yes. What do you think? Anu? Okay. Yes, that's a possibility. Okay, she was happy. Yeah. Anyone else? Yes, Anaka. Okay. Yeah, that is also another possibility. Yes, so these are all our speculations. We are only expecting, we are only guessing at it, right? So let's not beat around the bush and let's go into the story and find out. Alright, so Louise Mallard always felt that her husband was a dominating figure in her life. She did not feel free under his control. Okay, she felt that he had a very gripping control over her life and she did not like it. She always wanted to be free, she always wanted to explore the world, and her husband, Brentley Mallard, was always an obstacle in her life. Not that he loved her less or not that she hated him or anything. It's just that it's just a it's just a matter of control and domination. She did not like it. So now that the death of her husband, the news of the death of her husband is here, she feels that she doesn't have to live that life any longer. She is free at last. So that is why she uttered those words, free, free, free. Now what is she doing? She has started to imagine her life with all those, with whatever she can do now. She can go anywhere she wants, she can do anything she wants. She is free. She is like a free bird. She's like the free bird and the free winds that she sees out of the window. Right? So that is how she is imagining her life right now. She's sitting on that roomy armchair looking out of the window and she's planning all the life ahead of her. Right. But now what is happening outside? Outside in the sense outside her room. There Richards and Josephine are totally worried. They are like, oh my God, how will she be reacting? Will she be crying over there? Now they are obviously thinking that she's crying out like anything. She's crying uncontrollably because she doesn't know how to take it in. It's very difficult for her. It's a very difficult phase for her, for any woman. But now they don't know what's going inside, right? So then Josephine comes in and she starts knocking on the door. Louise, open the door. Come on, open the door. Listen to me. You just have to calm down and all that. But here, Louise is all calm. Only we know that, right? We share that secret with the author. Right. So now when she is coming knocking at the door, Louise is like, oh wait, I have to regain my sadness face for a while because I can't show this happiness to them, right? Richards and who cannot know about this? Richards and? That's right, Josephine. Richards and Josephine cannot know about this side of Louise Mallard. Right. So now Josephine comes in and she's like, open the door. Louise is like, okay, wait, I have to put my sad face on. She tries to bring back the sad face and then she covers all her emotions and then she goes like this solemn and sober and all that. She opens the door. Josephine is like, come, don't cry. You have to control yourself. You have to manage yourself and all that. She takes her into her arms and then Josephine leads Louise downstairs. And finally when she reaches downstairs, she sees Richards is still standing there. But behind Richards, there is someone else standing. Oh, now that's where we have a twist in the story. Who is standing behind Richards? Louise is like, wait, who is that? Who do you think that is? Oh yes, now that I'm building it up so much, you guessed it right. That's right, that is Mr. Brentley Mallard. Oh wow, that's a sudden twist to the story, right? Richards is covering Brentley Mallard so that, see, I told you, right, she's a heart patient, Louise is a heart patient and Richards is taking extra care so that he doesn't break the news inappropriately or in an insensitive manner. So here, Richards is trying to cover Brentley Mallard and reveal it very slowly, but something else has happened over here. Louise is very much shocked, but they feel that she might be surprised, right? But only we know that she's shocked, she's not surprised. There's a very subtle difference. Alright, so here, Louise is watching Brentley Mallard stand in front of her. The person whom she thought was dead is standing in flesh right in front of her. Now, the story has not ended there. Our story has not ended there. Okay? It's called the story of an hour. That hour has not ended. Now, without revealing to you the ending of the story, I'll just read the last two sentences of our story and I'll leave it up to you to interpret what has happened over here. Okay? So let me read the last two sentences of the story. it goes like this. But Richards was too late. When the doctors came, they said she had died of heart disease, of joy that kills. I'll read it once more. But Richards was too late. When the doctors came, they said she had died of heart disease, of joy that kills. What do you think has happened over here? Anyone? Guesses? Please try and guess. Okay. Yes, Jinsey, what do you think has happened? Yeah, that's very possible. Okay. Yeah, she was shocked. Yes. That's correct. Okay. Sit down. Next. Okay. Najrin, yeah. Yeah, that is also very much possible. She had planned out so much, but now it's not going to work. So that is a shock again. Yeah. So these are the various thoughts that are going on in our mind, right, when we read that. So what has happened over here is our author, name of the author? Yeah, Kate Chopin has brought in a very ironic twist to the story. Here she seems to tell us how it was actually intended to be the death of her husband. But then finally, when everyone thought that the return of her husband made her so happy that her heart couldn't tolerate it, her heart couldn't stand it, and she died of the joy. But only we know, and the author knows, of course, through the author we know that it's not actually the happiness that killed her, it's the shock, right? She did not want her husband to come back, but that's what exactly happened. Now that finally the time had come that she had planned out the rest of her life, she wanted to live her life to the fullest, it's all gone. So that's what's happened here right now. Alright, so that's the end of the story, and with that we come to the end of the story as such. Now let me ask you a few questions. Before that, did you like the story? What's your response towards the story? Alright, yeah, I'm glad you liked it. Alright, so now let me ask a few questions, simple questions of course. Yeah, Thomas, can you tell me the name of the author? No, that's not correct. Can you try again? Yes, that's correct. Very good, sit down. Kate Chopin, yeah, not Chopin's. Right, okay. Next, Anu, can you tell me the name of Louise Mallard's husband? Can you try and recall? Very good. Yes, that's Brentley Mallard. Sit down. Very good. Alright. Next. Rakhi, can you tell me the reason why Richards and Louise wanted to take extra care in breaking the sad news to Louise? Yes, brilliant. Very good. Okay. That's the correct answer. She was a heart patient, and so they wanted to take extra care because they felt that it would hurt her otherwise. Yes, very good. Rakhi, sit down. Okay, so I hope everything's clear. With that, we come to the end of today's class. In the next class, we shall discuss about the details of the language used in the story. Alright? So, I hope you had a good time. Thank you, class. See you all next class.